Hello and welcome again to Red Gaming Tech with myself, Amata, for yet more daily gaming news here on the 4th of April. This time I'm bringing you something a little bit different from Square Enix, as the president Yosuke Matsuda has said that the company will now be focusing on its core gamers. Now, there may be some of you who remember way back in the mist of time when Square and Enix were separate entities, and there have definitely been arguments over the years that the Square Enix merger resulted in them basically losing sight of their roots. And of course there's been many an argument about the more modern Final Fantasy titles, about how they just don't live up to the old memories. Now, in a recent interview, the president, as I said, Yosuke Matsuda, did explain that the company will be shifting their focus back towards core gamers and away from the wider audience. And he said, quote, "Not just limited to games for smartphone or console, but we do have some global titles lined up. However, regardless of whether they're for smartphone or console, there's difficult element to developing global titles, so we'll be making them without focusing too much on the global aspect." And he actually admitted to the company's mistake in developing for the wider, more general audience. And they said, quote, "For example, in the past, when we developed console games with a worldwide premise, we lost our focus, and not only did they end up being games that weren't for the Japanese, but they ended up being incomplete titles that weren't even fit for a global audience." Now, he then pointed to Hitman Absolution as an example of the company's loss of focus on their core audience. And they said, quote, "The development team for Hitman Absolution really struggled in this regard. They implemented a vast amount of elements for the mass instead of for the core fans, as a way to try to get as many new players as possible. It was a strategy to gain mass appeal. However, what makes the Hitman series good is its appeal to core gamers, and many fans felt the lack of focus in that regard, which ended up making it struggle in sales." Now, let me just clarify a little bit here. Hitman Absolution did sell about 3.6 million units as of March 2013. Now, those figures are not bad at all, but Square Enix made it public that they were disappointed with these sales figures, and they did expect the game to perform better. Now, to be honest, I always thought it was a little bit of unreasonable of Square to say, "Oh, 3.6 million units sold, you can do better, son." I mean, you know, that's pretty damn good. I mean, if it sold maybe like 2 million or 1 million units, I could see their concern, but speaking so harsh of 3.6 million is, I don't know, a little bit unreasonable, at least in my opinion. Regardless, Matsuda finished up by saying, quote, "So, as for the AAA titles we're currently developing for the series, we basically want to go back to their roots and focus on the core audience, while working hard on content that can have fans say things like, 'This is the Hitman we know.' I believe that is the best way for our development studios to display their strengths." And to be honest with you, this news definitely pleases me. Now, I thought Hitman Absolution was a fairly good game, but then again, I haven't really poured hours and hours and hours into the classic Hitman games. I'm not really a stealth game person, per se. Not really my cup of tea. I like them, don't get me wrong, but I'm not very good at them, so I'm not really in a super space to comment. However, I am glad to see that they'll be focusing more on the core audience of each particular franchise. Now, I don't think they should move completely away from trying new things, but they should definitely keep in mind what made the series great to begin with, and I really hope they implement this with Final Fantasy. Now, Final Fantasy 15 looks really promising, and hopefully it will live up to these expectations and the lessons learned from the Hitman Absolution sales, and as well as the sales of Bravely Default, which only sold 200k rather units in its first 3 weeks. Will just teach Square a valuable lesson in, you know, having mass appeal is great and all, but you can't please everyone, and you'll please no one if you try. So, yeah. Hopefully this means some stronger, more basically better titles from Square in the future, and I'll be keeping my fingers crossed. Anyway, that is me done for this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.